Threatened by violent Dominican poachers, the government is looking to close their escape route with stronger bilateral arrangements. Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm Kishla Adderley. Thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news tonight, the government is reacting to the attack on Royal Bahamas Defense Force Marines by looking to shore up the existing agreements with a tripartite agreement. For the second time this year, the Defense Force vessel Madeira was fired upon by Dominican poachers seeking to avert arrest. Now in custody and facing charges, the government says their propensity to violence has provoked a stronger bilateral defense. It's an international incident that mirrors an assault on the Royal Bahamas Defense Force just over 3 months ago. Tonight, a Dominican crew is headed to the capital under arrest for firing on the crew of the HMBS Madeira in Bahamian waters and attempting to execute a familiar escape on Saturday.
A boarding party was fired upon. The suspected poachers then made good their escape into Cuban territorial waters, where the Bahamas Defense Force was able to communicate directly with the Cuban border guard to pick up the pursuit after those vessels entered Cuban waters. We are at the stage now where those vessels are in the custody of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and making their way back to the capital with the assistance of the Cuban government.
This is footage of the July surveillance and arrest of the Dominican fishing boat skirting around the boundary between the Bahamas and Cuba. In this case, as in the last, a partnership with the U.S. Coast Guard proved beneficial in cornering the poachers.
Because at the outset, one of the crew members on board, one of our personnel from the Defense Force on board the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Vigilant, literally boarded that vessel where they were told that these vessels were making their way to the Bahamas to fish. And from that moment, the Defense Force went into high alert to pursue, search out, and find these vessels and bring them to justice.
Minister Henfield is looking to solidify partnerships like this one with the Dominican Republic and Cuba, cognizant of the historic sore point linked to the communist nation.
The Dominican Republic would be a tripartite relationship and arrangement where we can formalize these agreements, that we will know routinely what happens when Dominican poachers are found in Bahamian waters and attempt to escape capture by running into Cuban territorial waters. One of the issues that I realized, being a former member of the Defense Force, is that the ghost of Flamingo, I call it, which that incident took place in 1980, where we lost 4 seamen and we lost a vessel to Cuban make fire, still exists. And so patrol boats will be apprehensive in the southern Bahamas, and rightly so, to run into Cuban territory if the need arises. And so we saw the need to develop the relationship a bit further with Cuba so that these instances would not occur. But there is also a need to strengthen the relationship, I believe, with the Dominican Republic.
The Bahamas does have an agreement with the DR and is looking to sign a treaty to regulate fisheries trade, which would neutralize poachers. In the meantime, the fishermen are expected to appear in court soon as the government looks to keep all sides out of dangerous waters.